Hey guys, it's the Sludge here, and before I get started, I just wanted to say, sorry if you hear any background noise. If you don't know, my water heater exploded this weekend and completely flooded the house. I had like 2 inches. I had like 2 inches of water. It's rough, but if you hear any like humming in the background, I do apologize. Those are dehumidifiers to try to get rid of any moisture that is still in the walls and under the flooring. So please bear with me until that gets fixed. I'm so sorry. Maybe you didn't know, but today, that being November 21st, the Dead by Daylight developers had a little developer stream where they just kind of like gave the 411 on what's happening with certain changes from the PTB that they were trying out and future cosmetics that were community cosmetics that won, i.e. Haunted House Dredge is coming next Rift. What? 2 Dredge skins in a row? That's crazy. But in this video, I'm not going to go into the like PTB changes about like tunneling and camping and all that stuff because, let's be honest, if you want somebody to tell you about how you should feel about those, you should be asking someone better at the game than this guy. He's a goofball, all right? Go to Darva or somebody if you want to, like, you know, big brain comprehensive guide on how the PTB's fucked and what the implications of it will be. There was another super cool part of the developer stream that was right up my alley, and that was the Grimoire. We haven't heard from the Grimoire for a couple of months now, since our last voting, and they did tell us that it was going to be a while, but they are making the finishing touches on like the concept of the killer's power so that they can work it into a prototype, which is just the very bare bones early build, but it's actually what the killer's gonna behave like in the trials. One insight that they gave about how they design killers over at Dead by Daylight Behavior Interactive is what was his title? The creative director. That's it. The creative director, Dave Richard. He gives like the pillars that hold the killer, like the foundation in which the killer is built upon. What does the killer need in order to be its unique self? He created these 3 pillars based upon what we voted, and they are what the killer needs to be in order to represent what we wanted as a community. So the killer has to build up status effect, that being sin, reference future in the slides and in this video, the status is sin, which is very cool because it's an angel killer and it's punishing sinners. Yummy. And then the other pillar is fitting punishment, and they were going in about how what's the consequence of sin. The sin has to have some sort of, like, that's the power itself. It needs to punish the survivors in some way. And the third pillar of what makes the killer unique is that it has to feel like you're inflicting judgment with your sin, right? Like your power has to feel like the wrath of God on survivors, you know? Okay, so the first was the active power that Jeff was going over in the Dead by Daylight stream. And he kind of gives 3 choices for each of these like components that we're voting on. So this is like what we're actually going to be like hitting control and doing as the killer. This is its active power. A ray of retribution, which he described as like a beam, kind of like he said like reverse xenomorph flame turrets, which I imagine is some some sort of like trap almost that like the killer could set. Like, oh, the beam will like trigger here and it'll go through these walls, but the killer set that up earlier, kind of like a trap, I would assume, because I imagine they make that distinction on Flame Turret because without that distinction, it sounds a lot like Choice 3. But first, Choice 2, you throw your weapon and you control its path. So they described it as being like a mix of Cenobite, how he can set his like little gateways for the chains and then you control them. That mixed with Artist, how you put a crow and then you can fire it and then you would take control of it like Cenobite. I feel like that would be really confusing, and I feel like it would be very weak, if I'm being totally honest. I don't like Choice 2. Choice 3 is you throw your weapon, and it's like an AoE that will afflict in that area. So I feel like we've been getting a lot of killers that are projectiles that have AoE. Crossu just came out. You spit, and it's an AoE splash effect. Springtrap, you throw his axe, and it makes the little AoE bubble and all that stuff. Honestly, the active power isn't that interesting to me. None of these really stick out as being like, oh, come December, this is what I'm voting for. Maybe as time goes on, I'll like lean one way or another, but I'm really up in the air on what sounds good. So I'm totally down to hear what you guys think in the comments, because this one is just, I'm not feeling it. At most, the Ray, I guess, sounds unique enough, like a divine Biden blast. How the survivors are actually going to gain sin throughout the trial. And like, how does the infection start? Well, let's start with option 1. Survivors doing their objectives. So it is confirmed by behavior now that Jin rushing is 100% a sin. If you Jin rush, you're going to go to hell. So I do kind of like this concept, as it's like, it's tied to survivors doing their objective. And that sounds good, because if a killer's power is tied to any sort of action that a survivor does, it has to be something that a survivor must do. Option 2, sins are chosen at the start of trial. You load in and you're like, oh, I have the sin of cowardice, as the example that they gave in the stream. I have to play around this game. On like the survivor end against this killer, super unique and different. Like, if you got a different sin from one game to another, maybe the play style, like the counter, is completely different, and you have to kind of like reevaluate how you play. My only concern about that is it's out of the killer's hands. It's not something that will be a skill expression. It'll be RNG on like what sins survivors get. The third option is kind of confusing to me. If you have any like clarifications or thoughts in the comments, totally let me know and I'll absolutely read them. But I feel like 3 just kind of sounds like 1, but it also kind of, blasphemous acts seems like it kind of falls into like the killer hitting with their power in order to give the sin, which is totally understandable. And if that's how they're taking it, like it's a nemesis whip, or a plague puke, I get that. Then that would mean that choice 1 is different in how I was thinking. It's more so like the reverse bear traps that Pig has, that you're going to start the game weak. You know, like you're going to start the game without any sin, without any progress, and you'll have to wait for the survivors to get closer to escaping in order for your counter to them doing that actually to matter. So for that, I feel like I'm leaning towards choice 3. How sin accumulates, once it is inflicted. So we've inflicted it by either our active power or a gin popped or whatever, So the sin is there, but how does it progress throughout the trial? Wrath, which is the killer using their active power, like a Nemesis Whip or the Plague puking on somebody to infect them more. It's very basic, very bland, doesn't feel very unique to me, but it is a tried and true method. That's why 2 killers already kind of do that. The second is it's inevitable. It builds up over time. It's like Freddy's sleep. How you just at the start of the trial, it's like, yeah, you're gonna go night-night. Yeah, you're gonna go night-night. Yeah. I like that. I like a continuous build-up because just the very act of being a survivor main and loading into my lobby means you're a sinner and you're gonna go to hell, damn it. Option 3 was really bad. Don't if you're watching this and come December you're like, what did Sludge tell me to vote for? You could vote for 1 or 2. Don't vote for this one. The sin buildup is based upon survivors interacting with divine artifacts that are throughout the trial. Awful, bad, terrible. Don't do that. Please. Please, 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 please. I'm so nonchalant. Because here's the thing. No benefit that these divine artifacts could offer would ever, and I mean ever, outweigh the potential of just completely denying the killer a power, making it so the killer has no power, turning them into an M1 killer. So if, I get the chalice from the shrine against the divine killer, and that means that I can heal survivors 12% faster. Okay. But the consequence is that the killer will be able to see my aura whenever I'm healing. They're not going to do that. Because who gives a fuck about 12% on doing any sort of bonuses if it means that the killer is going to be able to do stuff? The survivors don't want killers to kill, so they're just not going to interact with the power. I'm definitely going to vote for option 2 here. And then our last vote, whenever we get the next segment of the Grimoire, will be, what do we get as the killer from a survivor being fully sinful? So option 1, it's like a continuous status effect that is always negatively affecting them, is how they described that. Kind of like how with the doctor you see illusions and you get static and noise that confuses you, something like that. But specifically Jeff in this stream mentioned like kind of like divine arrows smiting you, and you can dodge them, but as you get hit by them it could lead to like a down or some sort of other consequence. Very much think like a chain hunt from the Cenobite. I don't know. I don't know if I like that. Like the benefit of sin is that it's something that they can dodge and then just like get rid of. It feels kind of lackluster for me personally. The second option will be you get stronger. You tier up as more sin is accumulated, which one will mean that at the start of the trial, you're weak. Your killer is going to be weak because no sin has accumulated yet. And I don't like that. That sounds not good. To put it plainly, tier 1 Nemesis sucks. It sucks to be tier 1. And the whole point of early game is to just get out of tier 1. Because you basically have no power. Your whip is super short. You can't break obstacles. It just means that you're not going to have a power at the start of the game, and I don't like that. I think any good killer can use their power from the start because it's more about how you use the power, not just like, can you even get it? The third choice is hopelessness. The designer, he immediately lit up as soon as he brought up this option, And that immediately makes me lean towards it, because if it's something that a dev is excited for, then that means that they're going to put the most love and effort into it. You know, if it's an idea that they're like, wow, this is actually going to be sick if I can do this, then I want them to do that. Because it's like, if you think it's sick and it excites you, that means you're going to make it exciting and cool. Once a survivor is full of sin, they get banished to Brazil. Think like the Void from the Halloween event where you get the crystals and stuff like that. In order to escape, the survivor has to do some sort of challenges, do some sort of things in order to get rid of their sin and return back to the trial. So if that goes through, that would mean that survivors will just be banished to the Shadow Realm like Yu-Gi-Oh! And they can't work on gens. They can't help each other in chase. They can't flashlight save. They can't heal each other. That would be huge. And it's super unique and super thematic. Like it's you're a sinner, you're going to hell. You're going to Brazil. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. But the other part that I'm skeptical about is that, yes, it's super unique. It's not like any other killer's power in the game. That means that it's more than likely going to be susceptible to bugs, which is very scary for Dead by Daylight, because a killer whose power is a bug is not a killer that's fun to play, i.e. Twins, who is always bugged and always have troubles. So that's scary. I'll put on my brave face and I'll say, you know what? I want something unique and fun and crazy and cool. And I'm definitely going to vote for this option to banish survivors. I think that's awesome. So that's about it for me. I'm super excited. But let me know in the comments if you watched the stream or what you thought. If you saw these for the first time in this video, where you're leaning towards where the killer should be in their power and design. But I feel like go big or go home. My biggest thing will be to always make the killer the most unique experience to play, so that it's fun, it's new, it's fresh. Like, it's not just components taken from this killer and this killer, and make it something so crazy and cool that the fan base made, that like it'll be so memorable as to like, yeah, we made that and it's sick. You know, that's just my thoughts, but that's about it for me. Take care, guys. Bye.